How would you react if you found out your wife had been with someone else? Seriously, just take a second and think about it. That's not the kind of thing you expect to stumble upon. And I can tell you right now, the image of it is burned into my brain, like some sick photo that I can't seem to forget. Most people, I'd imagine, would jump straight to rage, anger, shouting, accusations, maybe even tearing the place apart. But me? I didn't dive right into a fight. Want to know why? Because before all that fury hit, I just froze. In that moment, all I could think was, I need to figure out what's really going on here. What the hell is happening in my life? And is there any chance I can salvage what's left of this wrecked marriage? Before I get into the mess of it all, let me introduce myself. I'm Ethan. I'm a regular guy. Nothing special. I work, pay the bills, grab a beer with the guys when I get the chance. I'm 46, and I've been married to Olivia for 17 years. Let's just say we've had our fair share of highs and lows. When Olivia and I first met, it felt like something straight out of a romance movie. Love at first sight. All that nonsense they try to sell you in films. And for a while, it was great. But, like anything, it started to change. I work as a logistics coordinator. It's not the most glamorous job, but it pays the bills. Olivia used to be an elementary school teacher, but she quit a few years ago to find herself and chase after some vague idea of her dreams. Whatever that meant. You know what's the most ironic part of all this? I thought Olivia and I were one of those couples that could make it through anything. You know, the kind of couple everyone else looks at and thinks, they've got it all figured out. Guess every sucker feels that way before reality comes crashing down. Our marriage? Yeah, it was rocky. More like a constant up and down. A real emotional roller coaster. But what relationship isn't like that? Sure, we fought. Nothing too crazy, but the kind of silent arguments, the passive-aggressive comments that build up over time. It wasn't the kind of fighting that gets resolved. It was just the kind that left us both stewing in silence, retreating to separate corners like boxers waiting for the bell to ring. We even tried therapy. Yeah, I know, it sounds like a cliché. We sat there, on those uncomfortable couches, pouring our hearts out to a stranger who pretended to care, charging us more than I usually spend on groceries in a month. And for what? To end up in the same place we started? If anything, therapy made things worse. Left us more resentful, more bitter. It was a waste of time and money. But hey, at least we tried, right? So why didn't we just get a divorce then and there? Well, it's not as simple as it sounds. 17 years of history, a bunch of mutual friends, and of course, that gut-wrenching feeling of familiarity. When you've been with someone that long, there's this attachment that's hard to break. Maybe it's not love anymore, but it's something like a sense of obligation. Like, maybe there's still a chance to fix things. And then there were our friends, Dylan, Lucas, Sophia, the group we'd always hung out with. For the longest time, our house was the center of it all. I don't even know why. It just worked out that way. We were right in the middle, so it was easy for everyone to stop by, hang out, have a drink, and shoot the breeze until the sun came up. Our place was where everyone came together. Honestly, I loved those nights. I loved the people. I thought we were like family. But, as it turns out, not everyone felt the same way. Olivia, especially, was always the life of the party. The one who always had the spotlight at those get-togethers. Laughing too loud, pouring drinks, hosting like she was born for it. And me? I was just happy to be there. Happy that our place was the one everyone wanted to be at. I thought I was surrounded by people who genuinely cared about us. But I couldn't tell you when it started to change. When the warmth of those gatherings turned into something fake, something I couldn't see past. Maybe it was one of those nights when Olivia laughed too hard at one of Lucas's jokes, or when I caught Dylan looking at her in a way that seemed to linger just a bit too long. But it wasn't until that one day, the day I found the evidence, that the full weight of everything hit me. And the worst part? I didn't even see it coming. It's strange how the mind works. You can spend years ignoring what's right in front of you, convincing yourself that everything is fine, even when you know deep down that something's not right. Maybe it's fear, maybe it's denial, or maybe I was just too blind to see it. But when the truth hits, it hits like a freight train. Fast, brutal, and impossible to ignore. So there I was, standing in our bedroom, holding my wife's underwear in my hands and staring at clear proof that another man had been there. And all I could think was, how did it come to this? Look, if you're expecting some kind of happy ending or redemption, you might want to stop reading right now. What I'm about to tell you is messy, raw, and darker than anything I ever thought my life would become. But if you're still with me, hang on. This is just the beginning. There's always a moment in every failing relationship when it hits you like a gut punch. It's not just about feeling numb anymore. It's about feeling hate. And no, I'm not talking about the anger that comes from her rolling her eyes at you in the middle of a fight. I'm talking about that moment when you realize you'd rather not be alive than spend another minute breathing the same air as the person you thought you knew. For me, that day came out of nowhere. It was just another Tuesday, and the plan was simple enough. Go to work, handle the daily grind, then come home and do the same thing I did every night. Sit on the couch, watch TV, pretend Olivia and I were still trying to make things work. But that day, it didn't go like I thought. The server at the office crashed. I'm not an IT guy, so I have no clue why or how it happened, but it left me with nothing to do but kill time. My boss told us to pack it up and head out early. So, I found myself driving home in the middle of the afternoon, which I never do. And that's when I saw it. Dylan's car. Let me be clear. It wasn't just seeing his car that caught my attention. Dylan was one of those friends who was always popping by, like he had a second home at my place. We used to joke about it. Our house was basically the local hangout spot, so him being there wasn't unusual, even if I wasn't home. But that day, something felt different. I made my mistake when I pulled into the driveway. My hand jerked, and I accidentally honked the horn. Stupid, right? But that small, innocent honk felt like a red flag, and I knew it the second it happened. All that warm, familiar feeling of home was replaced by a strange, uncomfortable tension. It was like the house itself knew I wasn't supposed to be there, like I was an outsider in my own place. The front door swung open, and there stood Dylan, looking caught off guard. He looked like a deer in headlights. I tried to stay calm, forced a smile. What else could I do? Start yelling because my friend seemed a little off? But there was something in his eyes. A flash of panic he quickly hid behind a weird grin. "Hey, man," I said, trying to sound casual, even though every nerve in my body was screaming that something was wrong. "You good?" I asked. Yeah, everything's fine," he stammered, glancing nervously down the hallway like he was expecting someone to come running. He couldn't stand still, fidgeting like he couldn't wait to get out of there. Every second he stood there made the air feel thicker, heavier. And then Olivia appeared. She wasn't dressed like someone just hanging around at home. Her hair was a mess, but not in a casual way. More like she didn't have time to fix it. Her face was flushed, and she was wearing a silk robe, tied loosely like she'd thrown it on in a rush. "Oh, hey Han, I didn't know you'd be home so early," she said, her voice high-pitched, trying way too hard to sound normal. She flashed me a smile, but it was forced, like a mask that didn't fool anyone. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her, then at Dylan, and back at her. They stood there, both of them trying way too hard to act natural. But I could feel it, the lie hanging between them, thick and suffocating. It was almost too much to bear. So what did I do? Did I start yelling at them then and there? Did I demand answers right then and there? No, I didn't give them the satisfaction. Instead, I just said, "I'm going to change and get comfortable," and walked past them, heading straight for the bedroom. I didn't know exactly what I was looking for, but something didn't feel right, and I needed proof. Proof that would hit me like a slap in the face. I started rummaging through drawers, the closet, anywhere that seemed off. My mind was racing, but I couldn't figure out what I was looking for until I knelt down beside the bed. That's when I spotted it. A small bundle, barely noticeable in the shadows. I grabbed it, and as soon as I pulled it out, I felt my blood run cold. It was a pair of Olivia's panties. But not just any panties. They were the kind she only wore when she wanted to feel special, when she wanted to be noticed. And they weren't just tossed under there like laundry that had fallen off the bed. No, they were crumpled, used, and unmistakably stained. There are some things in life that you just know, without a doubt. And this was one of those things. I didn't need to ask anyone. I didn't need any tests. I knew exactly what those stains were, and I knew exactly what they meant. Another man's. My wife's panties. You don't need to ask how I knew. Every guy just knows. It's like some unspoken instinct, a deep, primal understanding. I sat there on the floor, holding those panties, my mind starting to spiral as anger built up inside me like a slow burn. But as much as I wanted to march out of that room and confront Olivia, shove those panties in her face, and blow the whole thing wide open, something held me back. Because this wasn't just about betrayal. It was a puzzle, and I wasn't going to rush to put it together without knowing how deep this went. So there I was, standing in my own bedroom, heart pounding in my chest, holding the proof that my wife had cheated on me with one of my closest friends. And in that moment, I realized I had two choices. I could storm out there, let all hell break loose, and start a war right then and there. Or I could play it cool, keep quiet, and figure out just how far this betrayal ran. I chose the second option. I chose silence. Because sometimes, when you're staring down the barrel of a loaded gun, the smartest move is to wait for the right moment to pull the trigger. When I came out of the bedroom, Olivia and Dylan were in the living room, huddled close, whispering like they thought they were being clever. The moment they saw me, they straightened up, pretending like they were casually talking about something. Anything, really. But I could see it. The nervousness, the tension. It was like watching actors trying to remember their lines while knowing they were about to ruin the whole scene. But I didn't let on that I noticed. I just walked past them, acting like everything was fine, like I hadn't just found proof of their betrayal moments earlier. Coffee? I asked, forcing a smile that felt like it might crack my face in two. They both nodded too quickly, as if they were desperate for anything to distract them from me being there. Yeah, coffee sounds great, Dylan said, his voice still shaky. Sure, honey, that'd be nice, Olivia added, her attempt at cheerfulness making my skin crawl. I went to the kitchen, and as soon as I was out of sight, I pulled the evidence from my pocket. My hands were steady, movements slow and deliberate. I knew exactly what I was doing, and for some reason, it didn't feel wrong. In fact, it felt like I was taking back some control in the middle of the chaos that was about to unravel my life. I grabbed a spoon from the drawer and carefully scraped a small bit of the stained fabric into the bottom of their coffee cups, just enough to mix in with the coffee and milk, where it would dissolve completely and go unnoticed in the dark liquid. I almost smiled as I watched the cups fill under the coffee machine, the black brew covering any trace of what I'd just done. When the coffee was ready, I brought it to them, keeping my face neutral. I handed one to Dylan, then to Olivia. As they took their first sips, I felt a twisted sense of satisfaction, watching them cluelessly drink in the evidence of their own lies. For a second, I worried that the taste might give it away. But no, they kept sipping like nothing was wrong. This coffee tastes a little different, Olivia said, frowning at her cup. Yeah, it's interesting, Dylan added, giving me a strange look, like he was trying to figure out what was off. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed, a grin tugging at my lips. Yeah, I added a little something special. How do you like it? They both hesitated, exchanging a quick look before Olivia spoke. It's good, I think. I mean, it's definitely different. Yeah, Dylan said, nodding too eagerly. Something new. I like trying new things. I watched them both drink, a mix of disgust and satisfaction flooding through me. Well, that's great, I said, keeping my voice light, almost friendly. I love people who enjoy trying something different. They kept sipping, forcing smiles between gulps, clearly trying to act like everything was perfectly fine. And I just stood there, savoring every second of their cluelessness. But I knew this wasn't over. Not yet. I needed to calm myself down, get my head straight for what came next. After a few minutes, I glanced at my watch, pretending to remember something important. Hey, listen, I've got to step out for a bit, I said. Something came up. Work stuff. Gotta make a couple of calls, maybe run an errand or two. Olivia looked a little startled, but covered it up with a smile. Sure, honey. Go do what you need to do. Dylan nodded, looking more relieved than anything, probably thinking he'd get a chance to leave without me getting suspicious. I walked back to the bedroom to grab my things, but it was really just an excuse to return the panties to their hiding spot under the bed. I needed everything to stay exactly the same, so they wouldn't feel like something was off. Once that was done, I walked out the door, giving them both a quick nod before heading to my car. I knew exactly who I needed to talk to next: Lucas and Sophia. They were part of our little circle of friends, the ones who'd been around for years. If anyone knew what had been going on behind my back, it was them. And even if they didn't, I had to start pulling the whole thing apart, one piece at a time. I pulled out my phone and dialed Lucas. When he answered, I said, "Hey man, it's Ethan. Listen, I need to meet up with you and Sophia. Let's say that cafe near the park. Half an hour?" Lucas didn't hesitate. "Yeah, sure. We'll be there. Everything okay?" I forced a laugh, trying to sound convincing. Yeah. Just something I need to talk about. See you soon." I hung up and drove to the cafe, my mind racing with questions and possibilities. If today was going to be the start of finding the truth, I had to be ready for whatever came next. Because once you start down this road, there's no turning back. I arrived at the cafe first, which worked out. I needed a minute to collect myself, to figure out what I was even going to say. I sat at one of those small round tables, the kind where you can barely fit 2 cups of coffee, let alone think clearly. My knee bounced under the table as I stared out the window, waiting for them to arrive. Then I saw them. Lucas with his tall, lean frame, and Sophia, always wearing that concerned look she had like it was a second skin. They walked in, spotted me immediately, and came over. They greeted me with the usual smiles, but I could see right through them. The cracks, the nervousness, were there, hidden behind the friendly faces. Maybe it was because I was already on high alert, but something about the way they glanced at each other, those quick looks, felt wrong. "Hey man, what's going on?" Lucas asked as they sat down. "You sounded, well, urgent?" "Yeah. Is everything okay?" Sophia added, her voice soft but strained. I didn't waste time with small talk. I went straight to the point. "No, everything is not okay. I came home today and found some things. Some things that make me think Olivia's been cheating on me with Dylan." I watched their faces as I said it, expecting them to be caught off guard, maybe to look at me with disbelief. But what I saw was something different. They didn't seem shocked at all. They looked guilty, nervous. It was like they already knew what I was going to say, like they had rehearsed for this moment. They exchanged a glance, and it felt like a conversation was happening in silence, the words passing between their eyes. "Why?" I demanded, louder than I meant to. "What's going on? You two know something, don't you?" Lucas broke the silence first. He exhaled deeply, running his hand through his hair, and slumped back in his chair like he was about to confess something huge. "Ethan," he started, his voice heavy, "we've known. For a while now." My world seemed to tilt. "What do you mean, you've known?" I felt my chest tighten as the words sank in. Sophia reached out, like she was going to comfort me, but I pulled my hand away, too angry to let her touch me. "We didn't know how to tell you," she said quietly, her voice trembling, as if she expected me to understand. "We tried to get them to stop. We really did. We thought it would blow over. We even tried talking to Olivia. She promised it would end." "How long?" I asked again, barely able to breathe as I waited for their answer. I could feel my heart racing, my hands cold, and the world felt too small, too tight. Lucas avoided looking me in the eye, his voice a little quieter. "It's been a couple of years, Ethan. We didn't want to believe it, but yeah, it's been going on for a while now. Years. Not months. Not weeks. Years." The weight of that hit me like a punch. I sat there, feeling like the floor had vanished beneath me, trying to process what they were saying. And then, the pieces of the puzzle clicked together. I realized it all. I understood why they were acting so calm, so nonchalant. They knew, not just about the affair, but they knew everything, and they kept it from me. "Are you serious?" I said, my voice shaking with disbelief. "You knew, all this time, and you never said a word to me?" Sophia's face went pale, and I could see her eyes were filled with tears, but I didn't care. I didn't care about her excuses. I didn't care about her "I'm sorry, yes. We thought it was a phase," she said, her voice breaking. "We even caught them once together. Olivia begged us not to tell you. She said it was a mistake, that she was going to end it, that she wanted to save your marriage." "Save my marriage?" I shot back, fury rising in my chest. You think you were helping me by lying to my face? By letting me think everything was fine while my wife was with my friend? Lucas looked like he was going to be sick, his face pale, his hands trembling. We didn't know what to do, Ethan. We didn't want you to get hurt. We thought if we told you, it would destroy everything. Your marriage, your trust. We didn't want to break you. I slammed my fist on the table, making both of them jump. People in the cafe turned to look, but I couldn't care less. Let them stare. Let them see what betrayal looks like. You didn't want to break me? I snarled. You think you did me a favor by keeping this secret? You think you're my friends? Lucas reached out again, like he was trying to calm me down, but I couldn't listen. We are your friends, Ethan, he said, his voice shaky. That's why this was so hard. We didn't want to hurt you. Well, congratulations, I said, the sarcasm heavy in my voice. You really nailed it. I feel fantastic, Lucas. Really. You've done wonders. I shoved my chair back so hard it scraped against the floor, standing up, my body trembling with rage. It felt like I was going to explode, like I was going to shatter into 1,000 pieces. And as I looked at Lucas and Sophia, I couldn't see friends anymore. I just saw two people who had betrayed me. You should have told me, I said, voice low, but laced with cold fury. You should have told me the moment you found out. I would have respected you more if you had. I turned on my heel and walked out of the cafe, leaving them sitting there, tangled in their guilt and pathetic excuses. As far as I was concerned, they weren't my friends anymore. They were just two more people who'd let me walk around blind, while the people closest to me tore apart everything I had. As I stepped out onto the street, my mind was racing. If Lucas and Sophia knew, who else had known? How many more of my so-called friends were in on this secret? And just how far had Olivia gone to keep this lie going? When I finally got to my car, I sat there for a while, staring at the steering wheel, feeling empty, like all the air had been sucked out of me. For years, I'd held on to the belief that my marriage still had some hope, that maybe we were just going through a rough patch. But that was gone now. Olivia's betrayal had cut too deep, and I knew one thing for sure. If she wanted to play dirty, then I was ready to play along. She wasn't going to come clean on her own. I knew that. And if she thought she could get away with this, then she was in for a rude awakening. If she wanted to treat me like a fool, then I'd make sure she saw what it felt like. I started acting different, more distant, more preoccupied. I made sure to look like I had someone else in mind. I'd leave the room for phone calls, speaking low enough so she couldn't make out what I was saying. I wanted her to feel the same paranoia, the same doubt that I had felt for so long. I started spending more time on my phone than usual, always with a little smirk on my face, like I was getting messages that no one else should see. At night, when Olivia would try her usual half-hearted attempt to sit with me and watch TV, I'd come up with some excuse. I'd say I was tired or had work to do in the bedroom, anything to make her wonder. And believe me, she did. It started with small things. A glance from the corner of her eye, a question that seemed innocent enough, but with just the right edge of suspicion. "Who are you talking to just now?" she'd ask when I hung up the phone. "Oh, just someone from work," I'd brush off, pretending it wasn't important. And it drove her crazy. I could see it in the way she bit her lip, how her eyes flicked to my phone whenever it buzzed. She'd try to lean over my shoulder, peering at my screen while I was texting. Suddenly, she was asking about my day, questions she never cared about before. The tables were turning, and she didn't even know it yet. One night, I decided to take it up a notch. I needed to give her something more substantial, something she couldn't just brush off. So, I called an old friend of mine, a woman named Ava, who had always been willing to help me out when I needed her. I explained the situation, leaving out some of the darker details, and she agreed to play along. The plan was simple. We'd go to dinner at a place Olivia and I never went to. It wasn't going to be a big spectacle, just enough to make it look like a date. I wanted it to feel casual, like we were getting to know each other in a way that looked completely innocent, but was anything but. That night, I dressed for the occasion like I had a real reason to look sharp. Buttoned-up shirt, dark jeans, cologne, a look I hadn't worn for Olivia in years. When she saw me walk out of the bedroom, her eyes went wide. She couldn't hide the surprise in her voice. "Going somewhere?" she asked, trying to sound casual, but not pulling it off. Yeah, I said, fiddling with my watch. Got dinner plans. She tried to mask the tension in her voice. With who? Just a friend, I said, shrugging it off. I gave her nothing to go on. Someone from work? She asked, her mind clearly racing. I could see the gears turning in her head as I grabbed my keys from the counter. Don't wait up, I said, letting the door slam shut behind me. That night with Ava went perfectly. We laughed, leaned in close, and I made sure to take a couple of photos. Photos that looked friendly enough to pass for a colleague, but intimate enough to burn a hole in Olivia's imagination. We staged it just right, making sure anyone who saw us would think we were a couple, close to something real. When I got home, Olivia was sitting on the couch, waiting for me. The lights dimmed. Her eyes were red and puffy, like she'd been crying. She tried to act like nothing was wrong, asking about my night, what we talked about. I gave her one-word answers, acting distracted, like I didn't care about her curiosity. Who is she, Ethan? She finally blurted out, her voice cracking. I know you're seeing someone. Just tell me the truth. I couldn't help but feel a sick satisfaction hearing those words leave her mouth, knowing how much it hurt her to not be in control, to not know what was happening. I looked her right in the eye and said, Why do you care, Olivia? After all, you're not the only one who likes a little variety. She didn't know how to respond. She just sat there, frozen, staring at me, trying to find a way to justify her jealousy when she had been the one cheating on me for years. I could see the guilt, the anger, and the panic flare in her eyes, and I let her sit with it. I let her stew in that feeling of not knowing, of having the rug pulled out from under her. From that day forward, the power dynamic shifted. Olivia, for the first time, was the one chasing me, trying to figure out who I was with, where I was going, what I was doing. And all the while, I just sat back and watched her unravel, piece by piece, and I enjoyed every damn second of it. Revenge isn't always about getting back at someone. Sometimes it's about making them feel exactly what you felt. Watching them squirm, watching them burn, knowing that the pain they caused you is now coming full circle. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt like I was the one in control, and I wasn't about to give that up. I knew it wouldn't take long for Olivia to crack. She couldn't stand not knowing what I was up to. The constant feeling of being out of control, it was eating at her. It was only a matter of time before she snapped. And sure enough, one night, she did. It was late, the kind of night when everything feels heavy, the silence so thick it presses down on you. I was at the dining table, pretending to scroll through my phone, and I could see her pacing back and forth in my peripheral vision. Back and forth, like a wild animal trapped in a cage. Then, suddenly, she stopped, right in front of me. Her voice cracked when she let loose, each word sharper than the last. Who is she? She demanded, her face red with anger and panic. Who the hell is she, Ethan? I know you're messing around. Just admit it. I didn't even glance up. I kept scrolling through the screen, flipping past texts and notifications like she wasn't even there. I knew it was driving her insane, but I wasn't going to let her have the satisfaction of seeing me react. The more I ignored her, the more furious she became. Stop pretending like you don't hear me, she shouted, her fist slamming down onto the table with a force that shook the whole room. You think I'm stupid, Ethan? And then, in that moment, she said it. The words I'd been waiting for, the ones I knew were coming but had hoped I'd never have to hear. I've been cheating on you. With Dylan, she said, almost smugly. There. I said it. And you know what? It was worth it. He actually cared about me. Made me feel seen. You've turned into a ghost. A shell of a man. You don't even look at me anymore. I set my phone down slowly, letting her words sink in, feeling the weight of the moment. For a second, she was almost daring me to explode, daring me to lash out the way I should have. But all I felt was a quiet sense of relief, like I just won a game that I didn't even realize I'd been playing. I know, I said, looking up at her for the first time. My voice was calm, controlled. I've known for a while now, and everything I've done, everything that you thought was me cheating, it was just me getting back at you, making you feel exactly what I felt. You think you hurt me? No, I hurt you. I wanted you to feel it. The fear, The uncertainty. Not knowing who I was with, where I was going. You deserved it. She stood there, frozen, like I just slapped her across the face. She had no words, no defense, nothing. Only that look of pure shock and humiliation in her eyes. She never thought I'd turn the tables, but I did. You know what, Olivia? I said, standing up and pushing my chair back with a deliberate force. We should have ended this years ago. This whole marriage? It's a joke. And I'm done. We're done. I'll pack my things. I'm getting out of here. You can stay. Do whatever you want with Dylan. For all I care, you two can have this place. By then, she was crying, bitter, angry tears. But they weren't tears of regret. No, they were the tears of someone who realized she'd lost. She'd already given everything up, and now there was nothing left. Nothing left to fight for. But I didn't stick around to watch her cry. I walked to the bedroom, threw some things into a bag, and left. That night, for the first time in years, I felt free. Not the kind of freedom that comes without pain, but real freedom. The kind you get when you know that it's finally over. A couple of weeks later, the divorce process started. The lawyers, the paperwork. It was ugly, but it was moving forward, and that's what mattered. As soon as I could, I found a new place. It wasn't much, a small apartment on the other side of town, but it was mine. And for the first time, I could breathe again. I cut ties with everyone. Olivia, Dylan, Lucas, Sophia, and everyone else who had been in my life. I blocked their numbers, unfriended them online, and started putting as much distance as I could between myself and the people who'd been part of that life. It was painful, messy, but necessary. Now, here I am, telling this story to whoever is listening. If you've made it this far, you might be wondering what you would have done in my place. Maybe you would have confronted them right away. Maybe you would have tried to save your marriage. Or maybe, like me, you would have burned it all down and walked away. But one thing I can say for sure is this. Be careful, trust your instincts, and don't ignore those little signs that something's wrong. Pay attention to the people you let into your life, because once trust is broken, there's no going back. And if you've got someone worth holding on to, don't ever let them go. Because once that trust is shattered, it's gone for good. Good luck. You're going to need it.